high if I was stuck in Iran like for 40 years ago. Then probably I would be like a petroleum engineer working for Iranian oil company or some kind of power plant. Actually, my brother, he's younger than me. He's studying electrical engineering. He's finishing it up. But this this preoccupation with energy and different modes of it has a kind of relevance to my past. I'm Iranian, and Iran makes a lot of money from selling oil. Well, the last 10 years or so, they don't just sell raw oil anymore. They sell uh, processed oil, which is processed into white kerosene or gasoline or uh, diesel fuel or LNG. Well, LNG comes from oil well too, but it used to be just laid out into the atmosphere and burn it. But now it's itself a huge industry. There is a lot of money to be made. Uh, well, a lot of the stuff that's happening is Iranian government and Iranian people's desire to be the beneficiary of their own natural resources, which were formerly stolen by foreigners and uh, Americans. Well, Americans they weren't the biggest thieves. The British were the biggest thieves, but these people are gone. They are not an influence, or they don't even have a presence. Well, after United States assassinated General Soleimani, then things got really bad for them because it was Iranian people and the Iranian parliament, Majlis, they have wholeheartedly decided that we are going to get rid of the Americans, their bases, their personnel, their influence in the region, and Iran through its proxies, they've been pounding the Americans, their bases, and many of them have shut down and moved out. Well, their government and their politicians say a lot of stuff, and they don't want to accept reality, but the people on the ground and the people that are their military personnel in different countries, they have taken off. They know they have to go because they do. If they do anything, they will get pounded. Their ships, their bases will get hit by ballistic missiles or um, by drones, many sophisticated weapons. But this is not the discussion that I want to engage in this mini video. Well, one last remark is that uh, U.S. government and their country, they've been publishing all this cash, and they've been sending their inflation outside of the United States. Oh, well, we could go on this discussion about all the pools of money that are in the hands of the Chinese and the Arab investors and the Iranians and the who else? I think the Chinese have so much U.S. Treasury notes, 10 years or so, and they were. I think they tried 10, 15 years ago to just sell these Treasury notes back to United States. It's we don't need like 1 trillion or 2 trillion or however trillion of these notes. We want to do business with countries. I mean, if this money, these humongous pools of cash that are in the hands of the foreigners, they ever came back to United States, I I wonder what will happen to this place. Like, there won't be anything in the stores or in the real estate market or in the I don't know. Everything will become 10 times the price. You couldn't hold things on the ground with those industrial strength nails. So the effect of all this inflation that has been exported to other countries is that well, first, like the Chinese, they will try to sell it back to them and get dollars or something else, anything else. But then another effect is that they will just do exactly what the Chinese did, sell it or use it as investment capital in all these other African nations and Asian nations and Central Asia. They're just, in effect, all these phony money has become the local money or world reserve. But what is holding this thing up is, well, maybe men with gun, but then the men in gun with guns, they got their asses kicked in Iraq and Afghanistan. There isn't really no men with gun upholding this. It's just that many investors have it in all around the world, and they're using it as currency with each other, with local economy. So I mean, when a liar keeps telling lies all his life, uh, keeps printing phony securities, then the lie, after like many decades, takes a truth of its own. It becomes becomes an entity unto itself, like, or something similar like that happened because the Americans were in Afghanistan and they had gone in there, and had been a proliferation of hashish, you know, the producing plants, hashish cultivation, what they call uh, cultivation. There was a tremendous amount of this stuff that had become available in Afghanistan, and the U.S. military was itself guarding these fields and engaging in export of it to. It became an $8 billion industry for a country that in the past, before the Americans moved in there, they had about the economy that was about $2 billion. Their economy quadrupled because of these illicit drugs. And then, well, in neighboring countries like Pakistan or Iran, we don't engage in narcotics, and the government doesn't allow it. So Iranian government ended up with a huge cache of hashish. Not only we end up with all these hashish at the time when Rouhani was in charge, but also we ended up with all these spies. Some of them were of Iranian or Afghani descent, but some were Americans. There was one that was half Iranian. His father was American. Anyhow, we just keep catching them by the border or inside our borders. Weapons. hashish, teriyaki. Then the at the time of Zarif was in charge, Americans had to negotiate for something. I forgot that what they were doing. I think it was over nuclear program, but even that was some kind of front. Uh, well, they sent in Kerry, and uh, Iranian government didn't know what to do with all these spies, all these dope, and they kind of in some kind of backroom negotiations, they gave it back to the Americans, and the Americans, they I think they gave us back about $100 billion worth of our money that they had confiscated. Anyhow, it was like in effect, it was a totally shady. In effect, the Iranian government, despite our beliefs, our cultures, our laws, we became the major drug dealer, and the Americans, the the criminal organization that they are through Kerry, they acknowledge that we. I don't know what kind of deal it was. It was they gave us our money, our own money back, and we just expelled the old. But when I was in college I think I was in Nashua. Every once in a while, they used to have a food fight uh, in the in the in the in the cafeteria, and I think that the some certain kinds of monkeys, they also have a shit fight, like they take each other's fly monkey shit. So then it, it but it brings us to a discussion which is kind of similar to the preoccupation with energy. And like if you study many civilizations, there's always a source of energy, a source of revenue or money that powers up that civilization. Like the uh, was the like Mexico is well, not mainly, but to some degree is powered by narcotics. While other countries like um, what was that one? I'm gonna get that name. Anyhow, they're powered by something, some kind of commerce, some kind of commodity that makes that place go. Well, actually, when Iran developed a problem with South Korea, where they had taken a lot of Iranian oil as credit on you know consignment, and they had sold it to their own people or processed it, but they were not giving our money back. They owed us about $8 billion. So well, every time Iranian government, even through Zarif, which is like the most moderate diplomat we had, or Rouhani's time too, they were very moderate politicians. Every time they send somebody to negotiate with the Koreans, hey, give us our money back, you owe so much. And then they had switched to only on cash basis. The the Koreans would say, "Oh my, we have problem with U.S. sanctions. We are afraid of their secondary sanctions," which they were not, but they refused to pay. So Iranian government confiscated one of their important ship, and then they were telling them, "Hey, we're gonna confiscate all your ships that come in to Persian Gulf for oil. Then I don't know. I think they did some more backroom negotiations, just like Kerry and the Koreans. I don't know what happened. Nobody. I didn't hear any more of it. Either they had paid, or I think they paid under the table, and then they got their ship back. But uh, energy is uh, energy is really important in international trade. There are other commodities that are they are not actually energy. Like dope is an energy, pot is an energy, or cocaine is an energy, but is revenue that powers up many civilizations. I think the Yankee civilization is switching to cocaine and heroin uh, kind of energy source, because actually a lot of the money that can be that will be spent or can be spent is in the hands of Mexican cartels and you know the well, a few years ago, they discovered that the the recession that had hit the United States was actually fueled by the problem that many Mexican cartels had to where to put all this cash, where to, and there was some issue with some banks because the U.S. Treasury had inflicted regulations or confiscated their money. So they had suddenly withdrawn all their money. So there was a sudden collapse in U.S. economy or southern state economies. But really, wouldn't you be afraid if you were American that there is all these foreigners that they have huge stakes or they own. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that like King Salman, the crown prince, owns like 20% of U.S. equities. So and also every once in a while, like every once in a while, when this MBS, the clown prince, he gets high or his boyfriend has looked down upon him, uh, he suddenly like collapses the price of oil. He starts pumping two times as much oil and collapses the this market. Then his influence on United States is more than the Federal Reserve, I think. Or the numbers or the financial influence that some I would be very worried if I was American that like the Chinese or that they have all these hands that stretch out from all the way from China and Saudi Arabia into the balls of the financial markets here and other places, and they can. Well, I kind of have experience with these kinds of influences. I was married to my ex, evil Marlene, and she had drug problems, and she would, every once in a while, she just things just was it psychosis? Was it like a strong effect of taking meth and cocaine and I don't know. She didn't do heroin, but like things happen in like United States, many European countries that the origin of it has nothing to do with the British, the royal family, or doesn't have nothing to do with the U.S. Congress. It's just that some some investor suddenly does something very strange. He moves or uh, does some very stupid or strange things with zillions of dollars worth of U.S. currency. Well, the Iranian government has been the smartest in dealing with all these exported U.S. inflation. Well, in the last few years, Iranian government has uh, opened up gas stations all along Iran, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, Iran, Armenia, uh, and allowed tankers, any size tanker, to come in. They come in. A lot of different investors, or they call them kulbar, but kulbar is a kind of condescending word with somebody that carries goods on his back. But kulbars these days, they have giant tankers. They come in and they uh, they load up with cheap Iranian gasoline. This is, and then they take it to Azerbaijan, or they take it to Turkey, they take it to Iraq. So the economies of these places, where they were many of them were devastated by United States, endless warfare that they inflict on them. The economy, they can go because they have fuel, and also many Iranians that were sanctioned or ruined by U.S. Uh, sanctions and secondary sanctions. Well, there is a flow of capital, flow of goods. Capitalism is coming back to life despite U.S. U.S. Massive destruction caused by exported inflation and secondary sanctions, primary sanctions, depleted uranium in the forms of uh, rockets, and just the U.S. Civilization. In some time in the future, if somebody sat down and kind of looked at this civilization, it would say that they were the most destructive, most criminal kinds of enterprise. It is totally a surprise that they had managed to stay around or stick around. I think some of it has to do with there is a huge ocean separating United States mainland from the rest of the from Africa, from Middle East. So it's not so easy to reach out, uh, whack them in the head with a brick. I had this dream that many U.S. politicians are going to get killed. It was kind of coming true, but then something similar can happen with with unseen long hands of all these capital pools that are everywhere, and they've been exporting inflation and the money. Really, you don't know who or for what purpose they own in all this money. People get. I'm very surprised people don't get very nervous. Like, who owns our money? Like, say for example, in just that one deal, with Kerry, Iran got like $100 billion. Well, $100 billion is I don't know if people have a conception that what this much cash will do can do in the world markets. uh, is unbelievable. Well, I see what some of these videos that the weapons that Iranian government has been building up or reverse engineering. They didn't just take the money and go to China or Russia and buy some rockets. They went in and bought the rocket company, the passenger plane manufacturing. They bought the whole company, the employees. I think in the future, in not such a distant future, some investors or representative from Iranian National Bank, Bank Melli, will just come in into United States, like New York or somewhere, and will just buy entire Boeing company, everything, the production line, the employee. Well, when I graduated from college, I had a degree in BS in mechanical engineering, and later on I went on to get an MS. Like, well, that it's very difficult to get such a degree. You really need brains, and you also have to spend a lot of time. But then when I graduated and afterwards, when I was in graduate school, there is all this pumping of propaganda, making fears of Muslims and the Iranians that we are all terrorists. So when I went to the job market and tried to get a job, hey, I'm an engineer, and I it's like I walked into the eye of the storm, and there was such hostility. Uh, well, actually, I used to send like 100 resumes and go to and talk to anybody in the career development. And finally, like several years later, I got one interview, McDonnell Douglas, which doesn't exist anymore. But McDonnell Douglas had a smaller company, and they gave me a job as automated drafting. But this wasn't even through the company. I mean, I had such a horrible reputation in the job market. Well, I won't even uh, talk about how like my my sweetheart in college sweetheart, she totally dumped me. That probably there will never be uh, there will never be any kind of marriage or anything. Especially, uh, she just went on and got a very nice job. She's American, and so from back then, I just have this deep hatred of American companies and their politicians, and all the stupid things they do is just like exporting hate, exporting inflation, exporting weapons, regardless of what it does to anybody. Or they probably have all these depleted or uranium all over Iraq. But I mean, I just saw firsthand the effect that they had on my personal life. It was just completely devastate entire sectors of the entire job market, entire like. So I had to do with many jobs, many careers. I had no relevance. I didn't study for it. It was like they completely zeroed out entire investment in time and money. Well, later on, I found out that they had not only done that, but they have also exported entire industries, entire like uh, entire technologies to China. Well, then when I was following up on these developments, which were really very devastating in terms of employment, work, income, found out that many of these industries that United States just haphazardly dumped into China or Vietnam or other countries, it only takes these countries anywhere from 1 to 3 years for the people in that country, say Vietnam, to totally come to own the technology, the capital, the plans. So and they kind of pay off the American investors, whoever the crap was stupid enough to take all this stuff over there, and then now China entirely owns all the steel manufacturing, all the any kind of computer chip manufacturing, production, development. It's like, uh, well, thinking back, I see that it was just like I have this invisible enemy, like Nephilim that was walking behind me and completely demolishing everything I thought I left or was planning or was also walking ahead of me. But then what happens at where we are now, that the that somebody like me, well, I haven't worked in oil industry or energy industry for many decades, like say 30 40 years. When I was young, I should have worked in those industries. Well, I still mentally follow these markets. Like I was studying, I downloaded some books on some coal industry or on batteries where it can store a lot of energy. Well, on the coal, the Germans scientists were the only people really that they tried to do something with coal because the many of their supply lines from countries that brought in the oil to convert to gasoline were destroyed in the war. So they invented a technology to convert coal into syngas and then convert it into liquid fuels, and this helped them continue to fight World War II. But then other technologies came out. But what's very interesting is that because of all these very disastrous policies, the United States is basically is trying to reinvent these technologies or these industries. And while I was listening to Kaiser report, they were talking about uh, fracking. The technology is is in its infancy, is very dirty, very ruinous to the environment, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Well, the same goes with the syn gas and coal. They're kind of dirty industries. They do generate desirable liquids. Syngas uh, can be converted to liquid fuels. Same with fracking produces a kind of dirty oil or undesirable really in our markets, but also it produces methane and LNG, but there is a lot of processing you have to go through, and these industries um, they're really not cost effective in the environment that we are in, which means that in an environment that we are in, and the US Fed keeps publishing money and handing it over to many corporations and individuals, then the cost of labor and material in here in United States wouldn't allow such an industry to pop up again. But I think that this environment is going to change because of robotics. Say, for example, if you had a really dirty, very labor intensive and expensive uh, industry like cloth and loom industry, or coal conversion, or um, fracking industry, your labor cost because of robotics collapse to zero or near zero, well then I think that maybe like a few years down the road, United States can bring these industries back and become not an exporter of uh, you know machinery or software, but an exporter of commodities. Like, well, Trump was trying to bring the oil industry back, or uh, something like that. Well, I hate doing and saying stuff that helps United States, because I just have such hatred towards the US government, and all the retarded things it has done in the past, all the damage that it has done to other countries, and also on personal level. But then the way technology is developing, then I see a light in the end of the tunnel. But then we might all get lucky, and somebody will kill all the US politicians. And the people who would be in charge would be like, they would be real communists that practice extreme democratic, like all the voting is done by kind of like a one man one vote, uh, and then the people that implement policies, they're communists that they're public servants, they're not politicians. We could get lucky like that. I mean, I would want to see these people, they hang on a noose, but then other industries will come in, and there will be some kind of nationalism. I just wonder if I would ever adhere to such a nationalism. But hey, if the basic industries that pay the bills, and they change, they they become stronger, they're not based on debt. They, say for example, we were able to very cleanly convert coal into liquid fluids without much of any capital for labor. It was all done by robots or machineries. Or we could do fracking and get pump up as much oil or even more with robots in a more clean fashion. Then this place would have basic underlying industries that were actually able to pay for many things. Well, then I think only extreme forms of socialism or communism would allow the population to maintain such a high standard of living. I I see a lot of violence before such things change. But if because of AI or robotics, the underlying industries change, and the people that are they have to pay all the bills, they would I don't know, do things differently. I don't see the political system surviving such very fundamental economic changes. I don't know. We'll see. Uh, but then other energy producing industries like an alternative, they could also get a boost because there are these new developments in batteries that can store a lot of energy. Say, for example, you have a lot of small amounts of energies, electricity produced by many solar panels, which are not very big, or many small wind turbines. But these energies, they can be collected and stored in a very small space in portable batteries. Then you really don't need a tremendous amount of energy coming from oil or other industries, because you all you do is collect these puny little bits of electricity, make it into a battery, or store it in a battery that can be discharged very quickly. You could power up planes. I mean, I don't think that the battery technology is there that to fuel or power up an entire passenger plane. But how about drones or even war drones? I don't know. Thank you for being in my YouTube channel and in my Instagram. Don't be shy. Please leave comment. And I wish I could hook up with the 900 blondes that I've collected in my Instagram page. And they would some of them at least would answer my video chat request. Thank you. Have a good one.